How's it going, Falcons fans? I'm your host, NLT. Also listed down there. Yep, got my finger right. Right there is the ticker to find me online. Uh, just using for my website. If you're watching this live, welcome. We'll try to get to the roll call a little bit sooner rather than later. If you're watching this after the stream has already ended, you can still put down your Q&A. Just make sure that it's a little bit easier for me to read and understand and stuff like that, like the fantasy lineups and all that, because I don't know the full situation of your whole team and league and whatnot. So if you kind of go by, explain it a little bit more in detail, I'll be lurking around the comment section after the stream is done because I'm a bit self-conscious like that, but more so that I can be helpful even after you're not able to make the stream. So I still want that to be available to all of you now. Okay. All right, we got TY in the house. Eric McDowell joining us now. Okay, so I know there's not a whole lot of people that jumped on right now. Asia Green, what's up? I know there's not. We're kind of approaching some more people in the stream. I want to start off with the first question. Was I of any help to all of you? Was I of any help to any of you last week? Week 1 is by far the hardest to predict in terms of the fantasy projections. Once we have like more tangible stats to look through, then it's going to be easier for us to make assumptions about like who's going to be better than who in terms of situations. How's it going, Big Ant? So yeah, now that we have some more things to look at our disposal, I wanted to kind of go through it. I already gave my thoughts for what happened week 1 in our article on AFN. So there's that to look forward to in case you haven't seen that. I just kind of wanted to make sure that everything was off the table, everything was out of the way, that, hey, we all saw what happened on Sunday, but hey, we're moving on, all right? I'm not going to try to answer any more things about what the Eagles name, because I've already stated my piece right there, so that should be available to everyone. It was advertised this morning as well, so you can check on it there in the community tab. Okay, Wallace Smith, how's it going? Who? Yeah. Russell Gage had like 1 target and couldn't get his feet in bounds on there. It was a disappointing showing. It was not the showing that we were all expecting to have. But I can kind of say that with Tampa Bay, with the way that they performed last week, you have some opportunities to really get more yards down the field, gets more opportunities to throw the ball. I mean, because I saw the stat earlier that Tampa Bay was the only team in NFL history last week to have 100 yards in penalties, allow 450 yards, lose a turnover margin by over 3, and still win the game. All right, needless to say that Tampa Bay did not play good either. All right, most teams actually in their losses, if you go back, most teams didn't actually look all that great in their losses either. Okay, so we got to chill out. I know we looked worse, but that was only because the scoreboard says so. I watched some of the other games. I watched every game. All right, I spent most of my time earlier today just kind of watching the game film, looking at snap percentages, looking at target shares, doing all sorts of fantasy advice just so I can be a little bit more prepared for this stream. Yeah, I mean, my thoughts exactly too. So I'm trying to stay as prepared as possible for you guys, just trying to make sure that I'm calling all the right shots. If I'm not doing so, then sorry, but I'm not the players and the coaches as well. Okay, we can only make so many assumptions with our thing is. T.Y. Hall said, my only question is, can we consistently score? So I mentioned this in my article. Last year, Tennessee was the second best red zone offense. 75% of the time, they got down the red zone and they scored a touchdown. Okay, and I know it's going to be tough to compare what happened from last year to this year, given the new regime. But if we're just going to go by off of basic stats on our schedule, we jumped substantially from week 1 performance to week 2 performance. All right, it was a sluggish week 1 last year against Seattle. It was a 14-12 like halftime score. Then they got out of hand, similar to what happened this year. And then we dropped 39 points against Dallas in week 2. All right, everyone was saying the same thing last year about how sluggish our offense looked and about how our defense couldn't score. And while that ended up being the case, but we at least knew why. I can still expect a little bit more of a resurgence in our offense. Yeah, I mean, it hurts me to say this, but you got to give the Saints defense credit. Oh, man, why did I say that? But I'm going to regret those words eventually, all right? It's not going to happen more than once. But, you got to give them the credit for now, okay, for now. They got the free win on the free week, all right? That's all I'm going to say. Temperate says, NFC South matchup of the week. Both have a lot of work to do. Exactly. Both look really rusty in terms of the pre-snap penalties, the post-snap penalties. We had 12 for 99. Like I said, they had over 100 penalty yards on their own. Those are going to get cleaned up, okay? A lot of the mistakes that we had were more mental than physical. We're trying to do everything that we can in order to bolster up the offensive line. But I've stated this before. I want our offense to be a little bit more predicated to outside the pocket movement, all right? I'm not saying that I want Matt Ryan to be scrambling, okay, because that's dangerous. But he needs to be in a speed training for all this time for some reason, okay? It can't just because of his – it can't be due to his, efficient movements doing his normal routine, all right? I don't want it to just be that. I don't want him to just only be more twitchy, okay? Something's got to give with that too, all right? And I was thinking that if we roll Matt Ryan a little bit more out of the pocket, sometimes of what we were used to, we can remove the problem of the offensive line. We can at least negate some of that. But instead, we kept Ryan there like a sitting duck, and we got punished for it. So if we learn those types of mistakes in terms of the scheme and the formations that we're using, maybe we can have some slide protections. This is going to be some funky formations, but hey, maybe have Keith Smith at the left hip of Matt Ryan, just trying to see what's going on with Jalen Mayfield if he's starting. I mean, we're signing some offensive linemen, if you've seen that in the news already. So the depth chart says that Jalen Mayfield's still starting. Who knows if that gets updated later? I got to check on that. Brady's not that mobile. Yeah, I mean, the zone reads really killed us against Jalen Hurts. So we're not going to have to deal with that at least. Yeah. Okay, here's the one thing, though. As much as I am a fan, and as much as I defend Matt Ryan, he was not without his faults either, okay? He had one, or I think he had two, but one I'm going to give him the blame for of the intentional grounding penalties. The first one was understandable. He was just trying to get the ball out. He was falling down, didn't get back to the line of scrimmage. The second one was you saw the flick down there. That was no good. That was a mental mistake, and that's what got us in another hole on another drive. That's going to get cleared up, okay? We can't expect that to keep happening. It says, how will Falcons slow down front four of Bucs? Like I said, we got to move around the pocket, all right? One of the things that I wanted to have happen was for Cordero Patterson to be in the slot, kind of take a sweep, a pre-snap motion sweep. Again, there's a lot of ways to help out the offensive line, and we did none of those ways last week, all right? And this was very disappointing. We could have some double blocks, all right? There was a couple of plays where the guards just weren't blocking anybody, and I saw this one play, Brian Baldinger from NFL Network brought this out, where we put Fletcher Cox and had him, and the only person that was blocking him was Mike Davis. While the guards were off in their own zip code doing nothing. Again, the mental mistakes are something that we can eventually clear. All right. I mean, you're saying that the blitz won't work. Dean Pease knows what he's doing. He's going to have another week to get the defense right, to get the secondary right. Play action won't work. Can't run against them. Well, we'll see how that goes. I mean, we said the same thing about Philly's defense too, and we got like over 100 something yards on the ground there. Yeah, Arthur Smith definitely has to, like, if you guys have seen the Jamal Anderson's quote, maybe he said that on Twitter, but how is there not already an offensive package for Kyle Pitts? That I don't know. All right. He's got to have open up his playbook more than just run plays and passes under 20 yards. Yeah, and it reared its ugly head here. Sure. I mean, yeah, the Bucs have generally posted one of the best run defenses, but that only affects us when the game script like forces us to play from behind. And if that's the case, we're not really going to run there. At least we shouldn't, because we're wasting time trying to move downfield slowly instead of trying to take more risk against Brady. I'm not saying to play too aggressive, but we saw what Dak did, and he threw the ball down the field a little bit more often than Brady did. And the yardage showed, the game script showed, but they had a little bit more passes than they're liking against that game in Dallas. So I don't want Matt Ryan to be throwing that many times, all right? We got to get that clear. We got to be able to control the time of possession. That was one of the things that I wanted to really focus on for our offense, is to really make sure that we have control of the ball most of the time, because we lost the time of possession battle last game. Well, that is true. It still didn't give us a good look. Like, there's different ways to throw the ball away, and I know that, you know, that wasn't one of them. That was more intentional than anything. He could have made it look more like an incomplete pass than just a straight up like intentional grounding. So now that we have a little bit more people here, I'm going to ask the question again. In terms of my fantasy advice that I gave last week, was I of any help? I want to get that clear out of the way first. And I'm going to look and see if there's some answers for that. Some yeses, some nos, and in what ways did I help or not help? Because I want to be a little bit better at this and try to figure out where I went wrong in my logic. So while that is on its way, while those answers are on its way, I have the week 2 matchups that we can take a look at. Instead of using my other phone, I'm probably just going to use my TV screen. All right. So the Thursday night game is going to feature the Giants at Washington. As far as the game script for this one, I'm still going to go with a Washington victory here. I know the whole stigma about how Daniel Jones always plays good against Washington, but every single time that they play, those games get way too close for comfort, and Washington's defense only gets better while Daniel Jones seems to somehow stay stagnant. Who's to say whether he can kind of revert his career and hold on to the ball, because he looks like a worse version of Tiki Barber, man. Like, early on in his career, he was fumbling like crazy, and Daniel Jones is much of the same story. So you hate to see it, but that's how it goes for mobile quarterbacks, all right? Like, one of the things that people need to keep in mind for a mobile quarterback, they're not really getting hit in practice, if at all. So they're not having to go through these like same running back drills as far as like making sure that they're holding onto the ball in these moments. All right. That's why you'll see a lot of times mobile quarterbacks, they'll try to rely on their natural talent in order to get by defenders and like see if they can weave their way through plays, and then it doesn't really happen. It doesn't have like the best success rate. All right, Ryan Tannehill had a strip sack and had some fumbles. Lamar Jackson had 2 costly fumbles in that game on Monday night. All right, so there's that you have to keep in mind too. Like most mobile quarterbacks they're not going to be the best at taking care of the football on the ground. All right, so even though that on their best performances they're not going to have any interceptions, there's always the fear of a fumble. The Washington football quarterback is going to be Taylor Heineke. He played in the wild card game last season, and actually did really well against Tampa Bay. All right, so hey, take light of heart. I'm still taking Matt Ryan over Taylor Heineke. All right, and if Taylor Heineke does well, Matt Ryan did well in his past 2 performances. I don't know if you have seen Twisted Torch's video. He like kind of just dropped it, and I kind of listened to half of it until I needed to prepare for this stream. So yeah, like he was doing some pretty good things there too against Tampa. Okay. Ooh. I have some extra emphasis on there. If you're referring to Washington's backup quarterback problem or situation, then yeah, Golden Rooster, can you get some more clarification on that? Anyways, as we go through that, on the offensive side of the ball for Washington, one of the people that Taylor Heineke really likes to rely on is Logan Thomas. So if you got Logan Thomas in your lineup, I'd say it's a good idea in order to get him some starts. Tight ends are always a good security blanket to have for a young quarterback. Not to say that he's super young, because he's definitely has some NFL experience and some football experience elsewhere. But I think Logan Thomas is probably going to get more touches than guys like Terry McLaurin, and that kind of says something. Antonio Gibson should have some good running lanes. I'm not saying that the defensive line for Giants is bad, but more so that you can still sneak a run on them. I mean, we saw that with Melvin Gordon in the last game. Melvin Gordon just ripped off a 70-yard touchdown run. But outside of that, you take off that run, and you're kind of left with around like 60, 70 yards from both running backs, from both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. So they're kind of okay at stopping the run, but there's always that one threat of a gash, and Antonio Gibson has that same threat, if not even a greater threat. On the Giants side, Saquon Barkley was not given any help, and that scares me. I don't know how that changes, because that is not just an offensive line problem, but once they fell out of hand against Denver, they really couldn't find any other ways to use him outside of just simply running the ball with him. So if you have Saquon in your lineup, you better make sure that you're about to get ready to trade him. I don't like his matchups. I really don't. All right, he's a good running back, okay? And I said that about last week with Joe Mixon. I said I like him as a running back. I just didn't like a situation, and he instantly proved me wrong by leading the league in rushing yards for week 1. So, hey, good for him, and I wasn't expecting to do that against the Vikings front. But Bengals did show that they got better on the offensive line, all right, from left to right tackle. They look solid up front, even though that Joe Burrow was still getting some sacks, but that's just because of how good that guys like Danielle Hunter are. So you're always going to get like one of those, 1 or 2 when you're getting faced up against, or when you're getting matched up against one of those monsters on the edge. So I still consider this a low-scoring battle. So if you don't have someone like Logan Thomas, then I'd be really hesitant about starting anyone else in this game. Sure, you can probably start Sterling Shepard on the Giants. He had a lot of good looks in that game. But other than that, Kenny Golladay played a lot of snaps, which I was surprised for, because he was not practicing up until that game. So to see him be on the field for a lot of times, like that was good to see. But as far as anyone else. They don't serve as the same kind of threat. Maybe Chris Slayton, or yeah, maybe Slayton, but even then, I don't feel confident in him. So yeah, my best guess is see if you can try to get your hands on Logan Thomas or Antonio Gibson. I think that they're going to be good enough to get you some good fantasy points. I think their floor is a lot higher. So as we move on, we're going to have Patriots at Jets. Excuse me. Let me just say this right at the gate. Every starting rookie quarterback lost last week. The only one that didn't, and he didn't start, he threw one completion on one attempt, and that was the San Francisco 49ers with Trey Lance. Even then, he wasn't the reason as to why they won. Every other quarterback lost. All right, so that being said, Belichick is like 22-8 all time against like rookie quarterbacks. And if Zach Wilson struggled against Carolina's defense, he's not going to do much better against New England's. Let's get back to these. Saquon isn't injured, at least not that I saw when I was watching that game. He's just not given much help. Atlanta needs to start double tight end formation to help on the run game. Yeah, and that second tight end would have to be Lee Smith. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, we do. But, hey, it's any given Sunday. That's the only thing we can hear at on us right now. Okay, here we go. I benched Josh Jacobs for Swift because Jacobs is questionable, and I benched DJ Moore for Deebo Samuel. Good or bad moves? Well, considering how Deebo Samuel acted in the Week 1 performance against Detroit, that I would say you kind of regretted. Josh Jacobs for DeAndre Swift. Swift is a running back that's going to be sharing carries with Jamal Williams, and if you had Jamal Williams, then I would say it was a good idea to start him. I had Jamal Williams on my running back list, but I didn't start him because who would have thought that they would just score a bunch of points in the final 2 minutes of the game? But, hey, turns out once you leave the Falcons, everyone's going to have a hard time keeping a lead. Oh, jeez. What's your prediction on the NFC South record? I actually predicted all 285 games on our articles on Atlanta Falcons Nation on the website. All right, and I know what you're thinking. Wait, isn't there only 272 regular season games? Yeah, I went ahead and predicted the other 13 playoff games that would be available too. I try to make sure that the standings are correct. I double-checked everything. Of course, that's going to fluctuate as like injuries and all these other moves progress. But as of right now, I did all that before Week 1 even started. So I kind of feel good about some of my picks. I was right about the Raiders upsetting the Ravens. All right, and I felt really good about that because I checked on like the polls online, and like 76% of the fan base was saying like, "Oh, hey, it's going to be Ravens win, no question." So I'm glad that we all called that over here at Mad Mike Sports and at Atlanta Falcons Nation. Okay, you're talking about Week 2. Okay, well, let's take a look at the matchups that Josh Jacobs is going to be going up against. He's got the Steelers. So, no. Yeah, I would agree with you on benching Josh Jacobs there. Steelers have a dominant front, and they're going to continue to have a dominant front. And then you said for DeAndre Swift, Swift is going up against the Packers. I do like that matchup just slightly. But like I said, Jamal Williams is still going to be sneaking and stealing some of those carries. So you can't really expect like a dominant performance by Swift. And then for your, let's go back to there. DJ Moore, the Panthers are going to be going up against the Saints. If there's any indication that the Saints are legit about like the way that they play on defense, yeah, that's a bit scary. Deebo Samuel is going to be up against Philly. That's kind of a game where I feel like they might run the ball for some reason. I think they're signing some more running backs. Like they signed Kerryon Johnson. They're just trying to bolster up who they have. I mean, Elijah Mitchell got a good couple of touches. People are starting to add Jeff Wilson Jr. on there. So if you can try to get like your hands on some of the running backs for Shanahan's offense against this thing, look, if we're going to be called soft for only rushing like 120 plus yards against Philly when we weren't really supposed to, imagine what San Francisco is going to do. Because Shanahan likes to stick with the run if he can. So let's get on with these questions. In fact, we're the only team in the NFC South with an L. I wouldn't call that fun, but yeah, that is a fact. That's who wins the NFC East, the Cowboys. Like I said, if you check out my article, that's going to explain everything. All right, because I don't want to just drop a record and not show you like what games are going to win and lose. So, like, I don't like seeing that or like hearing that from other people. So I'm not going to try to do that to you. So if you just check on our website, Atlanta Falcons Nation, you'll probably see like an outside projection of standings in 2021. That's all written by me, and it's just going to be about like the margin of victory and just how confident I am in most picks. Can't tell if the Eagles are great. Hey, as of right now, it's a bit of both. All right, but we can't expect that for all 18 weeks. Okay, would you take Goddard versus the 49ers or Kmet against the Bengals? Good question. With Goddard, he did get a lot of good snaps and good looks in the red zone. I'm not sure if I can confidently say that against Cole Kmet, because whatever the Bears are trying to do with their offensive situation, it's going to be confusing just as it was last week against the Rams. I mean, I don't know if they're going to still stick with Andy Dalton by the end of this game or if they're going to start swapping in Justin Fields for this drive or, and then like that matters because, does Justin Fields look to pass or is he going to look to run? Because he had a rushing touchdown. He didn't have a passing touchdown. So if you have Bears receivers, maybe you start to question that. How's it going, Millie Mills? Was I of any help to you? I know that you were trying to like really depend on us for like fantasy advice. Should I put Antonio Brown as my flex this week? Well, to answer that question, I want to ask you who else is there on your bench? All right. Because you might have some other matchups that are sneakily good. Okay, I'm starting Calvin Ridley and Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was really good for you last week then. All right, he was one of the best receivers of the past week. Ridley, I couldn't say so much, unfortunately, but you can't expect a bounce back. Because Ridley in the last games, they did phenomenal against Tampa. All right, and their secondary even got worse with the injury occurring to Sean Murphy-Bunting, which that looked nasty. Okay, there we go. Deontay Harris or DJ Moore for a flex. All right, so DJ Moore. The Panthers are facing the Saints. I don't trust that matchup. Man, I don't trust that matchup. If the Saints made Aaron Rodgers look that bad, imagine what they could do to Sam Darnold. Like from a pure roster, from a pure paper matchup, I don't trust those looks. So anyone but DJ Moore. And I'm not saying that DJ Moore is going to be bad. I'm just going to say that, again, it's just a matchup. It's just a matchup issue. Okay, so as the more fantasy Q&A questions start to roll in, I'm going to be breaking down a little bit more from the matchups. Oh, here we go. Kyle Pitts or Hayden Hurst. Interesting dilemma that you got there because you have two tight ends on the same team. They should both eat, all right? But I think that Arthur Smith might learn from his mistakes from the last game and start creating or start unleashing that package for Kyle Pitts in the red zone. A lot of people have been complaining about that, and I think it's finally time it comes to fruition. Yeah. So, hey, that's just kind of the logic that we're going to go by for now. So I'm going to move on, start talking about the Broncos and Jaguars while more fantasy questions start coming in. Broncos and Jaguars. Oh, jeez, man. I don't know what happened to the Jaguars. I really don't. I was expecting them to like hand a big fat loss to Houston. You know, not that I really hated Tyrod Taylor or Mark Ingram or Brandon Cooks or anything like that. I just didn't think they'd be so useful out the gate. But if Urban Meyer is having some insecurities at his head coaching position after one game, that legitimately scares me. All right. If all the rumors are flying out have any bit of truth to them, I'd say just stay away from anyone on the Jaguars for now. Sure, Trevor Lawrence might throw you into a couple of more like touchdowns just at the end, just to, just duct tape the the broken legs that they have as a team. But yeah, the Broncos secondary, like I said, was as good as advertised last week. The whole front of the defensive line was coming in hot for Daniel Jones. So yeah, they're gonna make Trevor Lawrence look even more like a rookie than he did last week. So on the Broncos side of things, I know that there's gonna be a lot of receivers that are gonna feast in this offense. It's just a matter of who. All right. And sometimes it's like, oh, hey, I got Cortland Sutton and I feel confident. And then other times it's like, hey, I'm over here with Tim Patrick. A sneaky suspicion says KJ Hamler. Now, I know that he had a deep opportunity for a deep passing touchdown with Teddy Bridgewater that didn't connect. And I felt really bad for anyone that didn't or that started KJ Hamler and saw that touchdown being dropped. But what that does show me is that they do have plays specifically designed for him to go deep. All right. And that's with Teddy Bridgewater, mind you. All right. As conservative and as safe as, he's been represented in the past, he can sling it, and I think I was kind of pleasantly surprised with that. He did not look uncomfortable in week one's performance. And like I said, the Giants defense is no slouch either. So if you have the Broncos defense on your lineup, I'd suggest that you start them. And I know, like I just said about Trevor Lawrence probably being able to scare you out of a couple of touchdowns late in the game. And it's just okay, so on my tickets. Yeah, I don't think anyone was expecting that. I think KJ can fill in for Judy. Judy had a nasty injury on his ankle. And what made it worse is that they were almost trying to rule him that he had a fumble. Oh yeah. All right. Oh, what I did say about Javonte Williams did kind of come to fruition last week. I did say that he would kind of get more targets and more touches than Melvin Gordon. That 70-yard run that Melvin Gordon had could have just as easily been Javonte's or Pookie, however you want to call him. But here we go. Lucas Stricker says, should I start Lamar versus the Chiefs or Stafford versus the Colts? And DJ Chark versus Broncos or Corey Davis versus the Patriots? There's some good dilemmas. Lamar Jackson against the Kansas City Chiefs. He does not really fare well against Kansas City. He just often has a hard time keeping up with the Chiefs' offensive firepower. That happened the last time they faced, I think, also in like week 2. Yeah, that's not the best matchup, especially when you have Matt Stafford against the Colts. If you saw what Russell Wilson did against the Colts defense last week, Matt Stafford can make the same moon balls as Russell Wilson, and we saw that against the Bears too. So I do like the matchup against Stafford or with Stafford. DJ Chark against the Broncos. I already kind of said I don't like the matchups that any Jags player is going to have right now. I just want that offense to get more stability from an everything wise. So Corey Davis, I think he got you like I think he had like 2 receiving touchdowns against the Panthers, like very, very late in the game. So he had a good fantasy performance. I think right now he's still the #1 receiving threat. I think he can still kind of get open, even if there's someone like Stephon Gilmore or J.C. Jackson covering him. That sounds kind of like insane for me to say that Corey Davis, this former draft bust almost, is now starting to have a resurgence in the Jets of all places. But Stafford ain't right. Dude, in terms of the deep ball accuracy, in terms of the good touch that they had, go back and watch those like really good throws that they have, all right? In terms of that, and in terms of the way that their offense is structured to help their quarterback, I like the matchups, all right? Like we saw what was going on with Russell Wilson just throwing just straight up NASA rockets over into space only for Tyler Lockett to make nice adjustments and come down with the receptions. And I think whoever is going to be deep for the Rams is going to have the same benefit, you know, whether it was Cooper Kupp or whether it was Van Jefferson or whether it was Robert Woods, who didn't get a whole lot of action, unfortunately for me. I know he got like 3 receptions, 27 yards and a touchdown. I started him over Tyler Lockett, you know, and that was my mistake. But that's just because Russell Wilson, although he's a great chef early on, he seems to have a problem with handing the dinner plate across his offense. He only seems to have one dinner plate to hand to a receiver at a given play, and I just lost the coin toss there. Should I start the 49ers defense of the Browns this week? So the Browns are facing, I want to say Houston? Yeah. Yeah, go start the Browns. Okay. It's just the Browns roster on the defensive side is loaded. And I know that you can kind of say the same for the 49ers. But if you saw what happened in the last 2 minutes, that can kind of scare you, as that can come from nowhere. All right. And if the Eagles were capable of doing that, or if the Lions were capable of doing that in the final 2 minutes, what do you think the Eagles are going to do if they have 60 minutes to work with? That's just kind of something that you want to be mindful about. The Texans were able to score a lot of points, but again, that was against the Jaguars. You know, how often are you going to have those kind of moments happen to you? Terry Mitchell was going. He says, do you think the Falcons will show some fire or respond by punching the Bucs in the mouth this weekend, or do you think the Falcons have no chance? Everyone's going to have some chance. You know, it's not a guaranteed victory. That's why the games are still going to be played. It is a tough matchup. If Arthur Smith can learn how to clear up his own mental mistakes and not play conservative as he did in the previous game, we definitely have a chance. All right? If we turn those first 2 drives into field goals into touchdowns, we definitely have the shot. And if we weren't conservative on the last drive that we had in the first half of the game, you know, where it was just run, and then punt, you know, maybe we pass the ball a little bit more there, start opening up a little bit of the playbook, you know, because I don't think he showed like 5% of the playbook, man. Like, you can say that was vanilla offense or whatever. To me, that was water, okay? Like, that wasn't even a flavor. That was just water. Speaking of which, I came prepared last time because last time the stream ended and I was really thirsty afterwards. So, Ty Hall says, will you start Tyson Williams over Gaskins for the Dolphins? So the Ravens are going to be up against the Chiefs. I expect the Ravens to be down in that game. And if that's the case, you can kiss Tyson Williams' productivity goodbye. So then with Miami, they have the Bills. The Bills have a good front. I mean, they were able to stop Najee Harris from getting 60 scrimmage yards, even though he was on the field all the time. He only got 17 attempts. So maybe that was just the Steelers doing. But, we'll see how that goes. I kind of also expect the Dolphins to be down. But I can also expect the Dolphins to still be in it tightly because for the simple fact that it's going to be Miami, it's going to be September, there's going to be some heat that the Buffalo players, they don't always have the best of experiences facing with that kind of heat. That's a terrible matchup in that regard just for the weather alone. If that's much of the same story here, you can kind of expect it to be a closer game just for the simple fact that they might feel uncomfortable. Millie Mill says, I grabbed Gainwell off the waivers. Looks like Philly. I'll use the heck out of him. Yeah, you got to pay attention to those committees or just those split carries. I would say that try to do some more research on the snap percentages that Kenneth Campbell was able to have, because Miles Sanders is still going to eat too. All right, Miles Sanders is still going to have a lot of money paid toward him, or at least he's expecting to have some money given to him by the Eagles. Kenneth Gainwell is still going to have to prove himself because he's a rookie, but he's still a productive back nonetheless. So now our next matchup. Would we score 6 points? Nathan says. Yes. We can score 6 points using one simple touchdown. That I think is going to be a lot easier to get this time around. So I got an offer for Mike Davis in exchange for Josh Jacobs. Is that a good trade? Okay, look. You want productivity now. So if I go down the next slew of games for both teams, for both Atlanta and Las Vegas, you're going to have, after this week against Tampa, you're going to have Falcons against the Giants, and the Raiders are going to have to face the Dolphins. I can kind of trust Josh Jacobs there. They're playing at Vegas, and we saw what momentum they were able to have there. Week 4, you have us hosting Washington. That's dangerous for a running back, as we've seen. And we have the Raiders, if my thing can go any faster, having their Monday night matchup against the Chargers. I like Josh Jacobs there too. If we go to week 5, we're going to be facing the Jets in London. And then the Raiders will be facing the Bears. This one I would take Mike Davis over, just for the fact that the Bears defense can still kind of sneak up on you in terms of how good they can be up in the front. Their front 7, their front 8 kind of guys in their box. That really never went away for them. It was more the secondary that got depleted thanks to the departing of Kyle Fuller. And week 6, we have our bye week, while the Raiders matchup is against Denver. Not the best, but it's not the worst either. Week 7, now we're at Miami, and the Raiders are going to be up against Philly. I'd say that Vegas has a better offensive line than we do in that regard. They were able to do some pretty good things against Baltimore. So you have that. So, I mean, you got more favorable matchups for Josh Jacobs than you do for Mike Davis right now. And also, Mike Davis is still going to be sharing some targets with Cordero Patterson in the backfield. And given the game script that we can probably predict, Matt Ryan's still going to be slinging the ball like close to 35, 40 times sometimes. and that is going to steal some carries away from Mike Davis. So if you're taking that offer, try to see if you can snag someone else in that trade. Okay. Brady or Patrick Mahomes? The secondary for Baltimore had some flashes. You know, they were able to get a couple of good looks against Darren Waller. You know, maybe with the bracket coverage, they can kind of do the same thing with Tyreek Hill or at least Travis Kelce. If I'm going to lose to the Chiefs, you know, hey, the harder option is to have me lose with them using Travis Kelce instead of Tyreek Hill. But even then, Patrick Mahomes can still find a way to throw himself into a win using Tyreek Hill anyways. It is what it is sometimes. You know, so in that matchup against Baltimore, I'm going to take Mahomes over Brady. But it's just by barely. So what's the deal? What's your keys to victory besides point, period, win, and maybe actually sack Tom Brady? I mean, good grief, we can't sack a paper bag. It's not like we weren't blitzing. We definitely were. But thanks to Jalen Hurts' mobility, you know, like Isaiah Oliver wasn't able to get a stop. Grady Jarrett wasn't able to get a sack. You know, it's not like we don't have the effort. It's not like we don't have the play calls on the defensive side of the ball. It's just that we were up against a mobile quarterback, which Brady has great pocket presence. He's got great feet in the pocket. He's a little bit shiftier than you imagine. So, can you live with that, or can you live with us losing against the passing game? Lucas Stricker says, could we see any players traded by week 8, assuming we don't win the majority of those games? My question is, if you're going to make a trade before the deadline and you're not winning a whole lot of games, what would the trade do for the team? All right, like what kind of player would we need to get in order to get us back on schedule for that? I just don't completely like my chances with us thinking that all of our problems can be solved with just a trade, you know, because there was more to it than that. If I can just real quick take care of something. Hang on for a second, guys. Okay. That's better. All right. Hey, it's nice to know that he came from a school that you've been to. Malik Willis, I see, you know, because he's the quarterback from Liberty. Malik Willis he's still a project player. At your best, he's going to be similar to Deshaun Watson, hopefully just only on the field. You know, again, it's not just simply the quarterback's fault. All right, just because you want a mobile quarterback, it doesn't mean that it's going to solve every single problem on the team. And you know, you can't expect that out the gate for high expectations to be for a rookie quarterback, especially when they're going to be dropped into an organization that, you know, they're going to be desperate for wins at this time. Drew brings up the question, Cole Beasley or Cortland Sutton, who should I start? Cole Beasley had a lot of targets being thrown to him in week 1. I think he had like just one target less than Stephon Diggs. That says some good things for me if I have Cole Beasley on my team. He's not going to be the flashy option, but he's going to be the consistent option. Versus Cortland Sutton, like I said before, Teddy Bridgewater is going to have the ability to spread the ball, spread the wealth across multiple receivers because they got Sutton, they got Patrick, they got Hamler, they have Noah Fant, they have the other tight end that scored a touchdown that I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. And then they have some good running backs in the backfield to help them out too. So it's just you're going to be run a little bit too thin sometimes with Cortland Sutton in your lineup. Elijah Mitchell, yeah, I mean, he was really spiking up on the ranks for like the waiver wire pickups. I can see why, because of the loss of Raheem Mostert. But I also don't want to forget that Trey Sermon's still on the team. You know, maybe he sneaks around and gets a couple more carries than you'd expect. So that's just kind of how I see it. Yeah, Josh Allen is a big fan of not just Stephon Diggs, but also Cole Beasley. So Pitts or Sutton in the flex, full PPR. Like I said, if you're going to go by points per reception, just barely. I still like Pitts. I know that's a crazy thing to say, but hear me out. We complained like crazy, okay, against Arthur Smith and not having him on the field and not having Kyle Pitts on the field in the red zone. Does that get solved in less than a week? Probably not, but you're going to at least see him on the field and see him have more targets in between the 20s before that too. So I still like Pitts as an option there. When Walker says, I think we need to calm down. Matt couldn't pop off because he didn't have any time in the pocket. That is true. That definitely is true. Is Aaron Rodgers still a starter over Matt Ryan this week? Aaron Rodgers is facing the Lions. Yes. He's going to have quite the revenge game against Detroit. And if I'm not mistaken, I go back. I believe it's at Green Bay. Yeah, it's at Green Bay. So he's not going to have that kind of performance in his own stadium. That I'm certain of. All right, Trevor Lawrence. Give me the matchup of Matt Ryan. Like I said, our offense is going to usually bounce back after a pathetic performance like this. You know, we usually haven't been like back to back bad. I don't know if that's the phrase, but we haven't been that bad in back-to-back games is what I'm trying to say on offense. So if you're expecting the same kind of performance, you know, I wouldn't. But with Trevor Lawrence, if he struggled against Houston, he's going to struggle even more against Denver. I don't like that matchup. Melvin Gordon and James Robinson on the Jags. Again, once James Robinson and the rest of that Jags offense is going to be down, he's going to become even less of a threat to run. You know, Urban Meyer is a bit too questionable right now in terms of a play caller. He's going to be forcing Trevor Lawrence to play a lot of hero ball, and when you play in like that, you're not going to feature your running backs a whole lot. So I kind of like Melvin Gordon just barely. I don't love both options, though. So moving back with our Week 2 discussions. Next game I can talk about is Buffalo at Miami. So, oh wait, I think I already touched on that. Next one is San Francisco at Philly. This is going to be an interesting matchup to see if Philly proves himself once again. They look good against us, but can they look good against San Francisco, who's a little bit more of a proven team, especially early on? They have an offensive firepower that really very few teams can match. I think they scored the most points this week with 41. So that says a lot of good things about their offense. Anytime that you can get a piece of the San Francisco pie in some fashion, I think that'd be good for you. Because it's not like we weren't really beaten because of the secondary of the Eagles. We really just lost to ourselves. And San Francisco is really going to make that same mistake. Was Blake Jarwin a bad pickup for me because I thought he was going to get the most targets, but Dalton Schultz is the starter now for Dallas? I wouldn't say it's a bad pickup. It was just really a tough prediction to make. Like, those two guys, they're almost the same player in terms of their offensive productivity and the role that they have. Not just because that they're both tight ends, but because of how often Dak Prescott will give them looks. So while he's not bad, you can still kind of expect them to sub each other in and out. As long as Mitchell runs over Philly. Yeah. But again, it's going to be more of a committee. Like I said, Trey Sermon's still on the team. They picked up Kerryon Johnson. He's still a decent running back now. I still kind of think that Detroit gave up on them a little bit too quickly. San Francisco's defense or the Cardinals' defense? The Cardinals are going up against the Vikings. The Vikings actually are one of the very few teams that kind of look good in their loss, in a losing effort, I would say. You know, they brought themselves back from a 10-point deficit. It used to be a 14-point deficit, but, you know, we'll see how that goes against Arizona. That being said, though, if you think that the Titans' offense is better than Minnesota's, be afraid if you're a Vikings fan. But rejoice if you have the Cardinals' defense on your fantasy team. The only threat that I can see there is Dalvin Cook. If they control the time of possession early on and pose themselves as more of a threat then. But Justin Jefferson didn't get a whole lot of targets. Adam Thielen is always going to be that red zone threat, or end zone threat, I should say, as he had 2 touchdowns last week to really bring themselves back in the game. One of them was on a 4th and 4 too. So, you know, it shows me that Adam Thielen is still a reliable target early on. I'd be happy if the Falcons could hold the Bucs to a 2-touchdown lead. Yeah, I mean, we said this before. Dean Pease has had plenty of matchups against Tom Brady, from a younger point in his career to a much later point in his career when he was more dominant. And, you know, he's had some wins against him back in Baltimore. He had some wins against him back in Tennessee. Dean Pease seems to know what he's doing up against Brady especially. Thanks for the support. Prove it. It was a bad week for fantasy anyways. Only had a couple of players showed out. Yeah, me too. After I spent $50. Not the best of showings, but I'm trying my best in order to stay up to date with everything for you guys. You know, I spent $50 in fantasy. I spent $30 on the website. I spent $65 on Hulu just so I can get the NFL Red Zone. I spent $100 on Game Pass. This was all just to be up to date on everything. So this is a lot of money that I'm not normally used to spending, but I'm new and I'm trying to prove myself. Okay, Walker says, do you think that we will start giving Patterson more carries? I did like his productions. He was like one of the last – I can't remember the last time that our Falcons running backs converted a 3rd and 9 on the run. That was almost unheard of. Cordell Patterson, he's got that open field awareness. He's got the body in order to have those tough yards after contact. We saw that before on a couple of run plays, but also on a couple of receptions on the outside. He's a receiver as well, so you know you can kind of expect him to be a little bit more on the slot sometimes. He can line up pretty much wherever he wants. I know that his position is listed as a running back. I would just list him as a football player, all right? And I think he would agree with me on that. Ryan Hayes says Joe Mixon and Keenan Allen for D-Hop and Swift, full PPR. Okay, so Joe Mixon. Okay, wait. So you're going to be trading and you're trying to get DeAndre Hopkins and DeAndre Swift, right? Am I reading that correctly? So you're giving up Joe Mixon and you're giving up Keenan Allen in order to get the DeAndres. I think that's what you mean. So, I really don't like that trade for you. You know, Joe Mixon was able to prove me wrong last week when I thought that he wasn't able to do all that great against Minnesota's front, but they kept him in the game plan, which is something that I really like to see. I can't say the same for Deandre Swift, as I mentioned before. He's going to be sharing some touches with Jamal Williams out the backfield. And if the game script allows Detroit to play from behind, you can kiss the productivities of the running backs by again. So with Keenan Allen and DeAndre Hopkins, when I saw the Chargers in the red zone, I still like the matchups that either Keenan Allen or Jared Cook could provide in the red zone instead of DeAndre Hopkins. Not to say that he's not going to get you any red zone touchdowns, because he literally did last week. But they were spreading the wealth, Kyler Murray. He was giving it to Christian Kirk, of all people. I mean, come on. Like, you have DeAndre Hopkins, A.J. Green, Rondale Moore that you just drafted, and you still threw a lot of passes to Christian Kirk. Come on, man. That helped no one. No offense to Peas, but we can't do a dang thing on pass defense. Give it some time. That's all I got to say. I did. Okay? I gave him credit. All right? But we didn't just get beat by you if you're a Philly fan. We also lost to ourselves on top of that too. So once we stop losing to ourselves, which has been a thing in the past too, then we can act more competitive against an opponent like you. I think you look just a tiny bit better than Davis. Yeah, I mean, not to say that Davis didn't have a good showing, because he was getting some more looks, especially on like passing situations on 3rd and goal. I don't understand why. He was getting more targets and more receptions than Kyle Pitts in the red zone. But I digress. I acquiesce. I want to see Dean use Adetokunbo Ogundeji on our 5th-round defensive end from Notre Dame. You know what? I really like that too. You know, I think we already kind of know what we're getting from Steven Means. He's a great person off the field. You know, he was our Walter Payton Man of the Year candidate last year. And, you know, I don't want to see like a good person like that get benched for a rookie just because like, I don't trust his stats. But at the same time, Ogundeji is going to have a lot higher upside. You know, we drafted him for his reach, for his long arms, which I think are somehow longer than Kyle Pitts. You know, it's ridiculous, right? But we saw that come into play when those zone reads, even if he missed those zone reads against Jalen Hurts, he still had the arm and the strength to bring Jalen Hurts down with just an arm tackle. Like, that was insane. Like, that is someone that I don't think any of our other edge defenders can do. So Swift going to be behind run and receiving yards. I would think so. I mean, there's not a whole lot of other options that Detroit has outside of TJ Hawkinson that are proven. DeAndre Swift can be proven, but it's quite the load that you're going to have. Hey, yo, the new foyer. In terms of like 5th-round productions out of like coming out of nowhere with crazy names, I can see that comparison. But they play way too different styles. Okay, let's move along to what we got on our next matchup. We have the Rams against the Colts. Yeah, I said this before. I like the Rams matchup here against the Colts. You know, and the benefiters for this week, I personally want it to be Robert Woods a little bit more because he's on my fantasy team. But if that's not the case, I can roll with it. I do want to see a little bit more from like Darrell Henderson though in the run game, because they need a proven running back. That's the way they can have a balanced threat. And I think that offense is set. I think they don't really need to prove anything anymore. And not to say that just the one good showing against the Bears defense is going to be the end-all be-all for how they're performing throughout the rest of the season, because the Rams are going to have a lot of battle-tested matchups in the coming weeks. This is kind of one of them, but the Colts don't really have that same offensive firepower to match. So I'd say a little bit. I'd be a little bit hesitant for anyone that you have on the Colts side of things. Like, I don't know, maybe if Zach Pascal is somewhere sitting around there in your free agent bucket list. I don't know. I say bucket list. My goodness. On the free agent list, maybe give him a chance. But even then, I'm not confident in that. Aaron Jones and James Robinson hurt me bad last week. Oh, man. Sorry to hear that. Aaron Jones is the biggest surprise of the two. You know, the fact that he could barely muster up like not even 20 yards. You know, but they're going to have some bounce back games, and they're going to be just fine. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. Jerron Wade says, I know Marlon is a project, but I can't imagine having Marlon and AO on the D-line. We have a lot of upside on the defensive front. All right, that is true. So, Grady, the only fat guy with a sip pack in the world. I don't think about it, you're probably right. I was going to mention some other defensive linemen. I was like, no, I wouldn't call him fat. You know, I wouldn't really call Grady Jarrett fat, too. Like, he's got a lot of, like, built-up muscle somewhere else. He's clearly the type of person that didn't like to miss meals as a child. You know, he's a bit on the huskier side. Let's just say that. I wouldn't call him fat because fat is a bad thing to say. You know, I don't think that's accurate. That's an accurate description of how to describe Grady. So, yeah, Matt Stafford was a tremendous upgrade. We'll see if they can continue that, though. All right. Hated all the dang hate that Matt Stafford got. He was a waste of talent, and the trash pen Lions always wasting great talent. Whew. Yeah. That's all I can say is just, yeah. But if you're a Matt Stafford fan over a Detroit Lion fan, then you got to love it. You know, you got to feel bad even if you're not, like, a Lions fan. But I think there is something to be said about Lions fans just, like, kind of rejoicing over their former players. You know, like, they're still on the side of the players sometimes. You know, when it comes to the players like Calvin Johnson, who's trying to ask for like $1.6 million back from the team just so he can like make amends. Whether it was Barry Sanders, who eventually just got the love of football just sucked out of him over 9 years. You know, Herman Moore was a great receiver for them in the 90s, but after a while they just kind of deflated things with him. There's a lot of good pieces that they had, but not a whole lot of them lined up together at the same time, which was unfortunate. Do we need a heavy nose tackle? Tyler Davidson is trying to be that, but if you're talking about, like, do we want, like, a Vita Vea on our defensive front? I don't want to get too obvious with what we're doing on the defensive line, you know, and for all intents and purposes, Vita Vea was not playing a bunch of snaps on the defensive front for Tampa, you know, and that was kind of like the same about his energy levels. You know, like, I want like constant pressure on these quarterbacks. Will a heavy nose tackle take care of that problem? Not so much. That's going to take care of our run problem, like defending the run. And in the past couple of years, we didn't really have that much of a problem. Just more so from the sake that they didn't really try to run on us because because our opponents were down, because we were having to lead, you know, and yeah, I would say that too. You know, Goff did look good at the last couple of drives. Maybe that's what they look like instead of the rest of the 58 minutes that they had the ball and only managed 17 points. San Francisco is really good. They were clearly outmatched. But, yeah, I can't discount what Jared Goff did later on. All right, and that's one of the things that Dan Campbell was really preaching is that, hey, you just got to have that mental toughness, and you got to make sure that every part of your team is strong. You know, from a physical standpoint to an emotional standpoint, you know, they didn't really let the scoreboard affect them, and they still found a way to try to like get points on the board, even if there was really no chance for them to win. And, you know, like it took on a 4th and 9, like gone bad for them to officially be out of the game. So, it's it was a crazy ending, but I don't think anything was as crazy as the Ravens-Raiders ending. That was just, like John Gruden said in his press conference, it's like he died, then got resurrected, then died again. Speaking of which, the Raiders were the next team I was going to talk about against the Steelers. I liked the Steelers here, and I didn't think that I would say that. They made Buffalo look average, and I was really surprised at that. Like the first drive that Buffalo had, like the first play of the game went really well for them. They had a really good kick return, and because of how stout that Pittsburgh defense was, they only held them to 3 points. Now, offensively, the Steelers got a lot of work to do there too. They were scoreless in the first half, and that was kind of scary. But then a block punt helped them out. There was just a couple of other things. Deontay Johnson made one heck of a grab, reception. I'll just say reception at the back corner of the end zone. That was a really good catch. I think what really took the cake, though, was Terry McLaurin's catch. If you haven't seen it yet, then go check it out, because that was insane. Like, that was a poor decision, but it worked itself out in the end. If only Dontari Poe worked out for us, but, as always, we get cheated when it comes to getting hopeful free agents. What was the last free agent that actually worked out really well for us? I do like Fabian Moreau, and I didn't think that I would say that right away. When they were playing man coverage, like I saw Fabian Moreau do really good against Devontae Smith on a slant route. He caused a pass pickup then, and I was like, wow. Okay. Like outside the pick play, Fabian he held up his own, and about the secondary, I don't think AJ Terrell was targeted at all that game. I don't think Jalen Hurts really looked his way, and that speaks really good volumes about AJ Terrell. We needed Ed Oliver. How is Ed Oliver doing so far in Buffalo, though? All right, because they also wanted Ed Oliver there too, and then like the next draft they got AJ Epinesa, and then now they're getting like Greg Rousseau, so they're still trying to beef up the defensive line too with Ed Oliver in mind. There was another one too that was like, oh man, who was that other guy that I wanted? The 49ers took him before we took Terrell. Javon Kinlaw. He looked really good in college too, and I thought, man, if he failed to us, like that was going to be a great steal. But we also can't forget that we have Marlon Davidson, who, like I said, he has upside. Don't get me wrong. Debo for DK straight up. They are both very hot and cold receivers. Okay? Debo Samuel really proved himself this game. Can you expect that all the time, though? I mean, Brandon Ayuk should be getting some more targets later on in the season. George Kittle is always going to feast, and they always want to try to depend on the run game. And who knows what they do with Trey Lance, and I think that also says something too with how effective their balanced attack is going to be. Bryan Edwards might be the sleeper if he can produce more like he did in the last 4 minutes in overtime. That's another thing too. Like when you got to think about how the game situation is for these offenses, like, hey, 3rd and 9, who are you going to go to? Like, I want to know, because that is in the game script for you week 1. Like looking at the snap percentages, Bryan Edwards he was on the field a decent amount, but he wasn't being targeted enough. So I want volume on top of just being a good receiver in desperate times. So, for the Raiders offense, like they have Henry Ruggs, who was trying to prove himself in the offseason, trying to get his weight up, and that didn't really pan out right now. It was often said that The third downs for Vegas is like third and Renfro. So outside of Darren Waller, who's kind of still consistently going to be their biggest threat, Ryan Edwards really showed himself out. For some reason, it was Zay Jones that ended up being the saving grace for Derek Carr at the last play there. And I don't think anyone was expecting that, so. Hope y'all ready. I hope we are too. The free agency strikeout era was the Dimitrov era, only hopefully. Yeah, I mean, look, for the past couple of years, the Saints have been well built on all sides of the ball. All right, like you can point to pretty much every position group for the last couple of years and find some good talent there. And I bring that up because we had Mickey Loomis, the general manager for the Saints, wanted to succeed him, and Terry Fontenot. Terry Fontenot's been with that organization since around like 2002 or 2003, something like that. Kind of grew up with Mickey Loomis, really. And he showed him all the ins and outs. Fontenot was much more of a scouter than anything as a man before he became the manager here. So that means that he knows how to find talent. He's been underneath a really good grocery shopper as well for New Orleans. Like, he was there before they got Drew Brees. Like, let's just put it at that. What do you think about this trade? I received Evans. What Sanders is that? Is that Emmanuel? Or is that Miles? I want to figure out, like, who that Sanders is. Robbie Anderson. I give up Godwin, Galladay, Beasley, and J-Rob? James Robinson? Is that who you're referring to? Okay, so it's Miles Sanders. Ooh, if I was Emmanuel, I'd say yes. But Evans, I think he's a buy low, sell high kind of player right now. Yeah, James Robinson. Okay. He was on the field a lot more often than Antonio Brown, yet who got the volume of touches. I don't think that's going to happen every single time. But Mike Evans, he was just like what I mentioned with Brandon Cooks last week. He's going to wake up, get you 1,000 yards, get you a couple touchdowns, and go about his day. He's done that for the past 7 years, ever since he entered the league. The only one that was able to rival him in that span of time was Julio. And, he was injured in 2013. So had he stayed the course, he's up there with them, which I think is really good company to have. It's just unfortunate when we have to work up against them twice. Evans disabled every game. Yeah, like, he's the biggest threat still on a physical standpoint. I was going, well, yeah, he's the biggest threat from a physical standpoint outside of Antonio Brown, just because of his shiftiness. He's really good at double moves. You also got Gronk, who he's just another tall body, has a great chemistry with Brady. So you got to keep that in mind as well, Godwin's going to get a lot more receptions too. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to spread the wealth when you have three great receivers such as that, like them. But you liken it back to the way that we were in 2016. Like, we were terrible for fantasy, but we were just great offensively in general. So think of it like that. Like, in 2016, Julio had 6 touchdowns, but so did Taylor Gabriel. Like, and I think that could be a similar situation too. Like, in terms of like snap, like who's on the field a lot? Yeah, it's going to be Evans over Antonio Brown. But who's going to get the ball more? It's the chemistry that you got to worry about. So, speaking of, I don't have a segue. Let's move on to the Bengals and Bears. Bengals really proved me wrong, like I said, with Joe Mixon, which is a good thing. I like to see good running backs perform well. The 3 receivers that they have. Oh, okay. Yeah. The AJ Terrell need to shadow Chris Godwin and Isaiah Oliver on AB. The reason why I'm hesitant about that is because Dean Pease really made a statement before that he doesn't really think that a shutdown corner is necessary, or that one ever really existed. So playing that into consideration, you got to think that AJ Terrell is going to have a role on defense instead of just, oh, hey, just cover this guy for the entire game. I think he's still going to be moved around and covered as he does. But yeah. Anyways, back to the Bengals at the Bears. The 3 receivers that the Bengals have, I really like those matchups there. So if you have either Jamar Chase, who everyone was really down on before the season started, you have T. Higgins, you have Tyler Boyd, they're all going to start feasting, man, outside of Joe Mixon. I don't really see a super blitz in Tom Brady. I want to. I want to see us blitz Tom Brady because that's one of the biggest ways that we can get uncomfortable. Like with the Super Bowl losses that he had, and I say this because those are like some of the best examples of a deep roster on the defensive line. The Giants' defenses were just loaded. Like in 2007, you had like Strahan and Osi Umenyiora, and in 2011, you had the resurgence of Justin Tuck. Like, those are really dominant defenses, but they weren't just like sending the same 4 every single time. Like I think it was Steve Spagnuolo who was the defensive coordinator for the Giants back then. Like he got to Brady, and I think that Dean Pease is slightly more. He's got a better pedigree than Spagnuolo. NYC Young Boy says, should I feel confident starting any Falcons player in fantasy this week? Well, who do you have? I think that's the first question I need to get out of the way. Because the only one that I would feel confident in right now is Calvin Ridley. That's because in the previous 2 attempts, he had really good showings. Like in our first home game, like our first game against them, like again, this was late in the season when they were on a roll against everyone. Calvin Ridley had 10 catches for 163 yards and a touchdown. And their secondary got worse. So, Prove It says that. There's an idea as well. It's just the bulk of the carries that I'm not super confident in. I know he's going to play his own part in helping us to get a win. But as far as, the floor is concerned for these players, I have a higher floor for Ridley than I do for Patterson right now. Because Ridley, you're always going to see on the field. With Patterson, it's going to be tough to always let him have an impact. Do you think Arthur Smith will use a similar scheme and target the cornerback that was getting roasted all game last week? You're referring to Jamel Dean? If that's the case, like the only reason why he was getting roasted was because he was really handsy. He was really grabby, too physical for Todd Bowles' liking sometimes, and that's what got him uncomfortable. That's what got him really comfortable to throw to. It's just when it comes to Arthur Smith's game plan versus like Kellen Moore's, for example. Yeah, so they had his number all game. Yeah, it's such a dilemma. I mean, when it comes to just predicting about like the floors and the ceilings of every player right now, especially for our team that has such a challenge. I mean, the defense isn't perfect on their side. Like if the Cowboys were able to do it, how come Atlanta couldn't? If they just play up to their talent levels what they did last year with worse coaching. So you just got that to keep in mind. Our next matchup that I want to talk about, just as the more questions come in, is going to be the Texans at the Browns. OBJ is not going to be playing this week, and that's a real bummer. But Donovan Peoples-Jones is someone that I still want to pay attention to, And Kareem Hunt is still looking like a legitimate option. Like Nick Chubb had like 53% of the on-field snaps for Cleveland, and Kareem Hunt was right there at 47%. So that's a really consistent 1-2 punch that they should probably start having a little bit more effectively, because they really relied on Nick Chubb a little bit more than Kareem Hunt. So maybe they can kind of help each other out a little bit more this year. And that way, the tread on both of their tires isn't going to wear down as much as, say, Derrick Henry, who's just chugging it all by himself. And once he stopped, then the rest of the team stopped. I still don't see that with Cleveland. Would you not throw to Julio over a penalty and lose? First of all, I'm a little bit confused as to why you were all caps in some ways and then like small caps in others. I don't really know what kind of question you're asking here. Would you not throw to Julio over a penalty and lose? Prove it. Can you kind of clarify that a little bit for me, please? In the meantime, the Texans, their offense they had a really good showing. Mark Ingram was the legit running back for them now, and I thought it was going to be Lindsey. But big thumbs. Oh, geez, I got my dog barking. Okay. Abel was mad. Yeah, I mean, all he was doing was just answering the question. I don't know why everyone got so worked up over that. Oh, Maggie popped up.
Hey, Noah. I was trying to tell you your internet was kind of in and out for a moment, so it got choppy at the very moment, but it's back better now.
Oh, geez.
Just letting you know, but it's good. It's good. And I guess I'm going to interrupt real quick because I was trying to get you to see my messages. I don't know if you've seen it. But
oh, geez.
I just kind of wanted to introduce who you are again, because a lot of people are kind of questioning, hey, what's going on here? We're not used to seeing you guys at this type of, time of the night. So I just kind of wanted to let everybody know who you are again in case they haven't figured it out yet. So this is Noah, one of our lead writers at the Atlanta Falcons Nation website, as well as he has his own website. I guess you can go ahead and plug that in, but go ahead and tell everybody who you are and what you're going to be bringing Wednesday nights to everybody, so they'll be aware and they can do their homework and have those questions ready.
Yeah, I mean, when I bring up the comment sections, that's what removes the name. But if I do that, hey, that's my name right there in the bottom corner. I've kind of been in the background for Atlanta Falcons Nation for a little bit over a month now, just silently working along. I'm over here in the West Coast, as you can tell. I don't know if you can tell from the background, but as you can tell just from the time zones, I'm kind of working more to my benefit here. It's really hard for me to kind of join you guys in the 5 o'clock hour because I'm just getting off of work once 5 o'clock hits for me over here. So it's unfortunate, but sometimes I'll try to make the effort to join you on the Fridays like I did last week.
Mm-hmm.
But in the process of all of this, we had some more comments that was going back over here. Be careful about saying that. Good God, how many years have other people said that in the past and got roasted for
it? Tom Brady.
How do you just keep doubting this guy year after year after year? And you know what? It's not always him. Like I said, when at the start of the stream, I was like, man, Tampa Bay, they lost their turnover margin. They had over 100 yards in penalties. They gave up 450 yards on the defensive side, and they still found a way to win. That's not a consistent way of winning, and that's something that our offense can exploit as well. I know that they're going to get better as well as us, but their problem was more on the field. Ours was more in our heads. So, kind of already answered that question. Okay. Do you like any of the Texans running backs? I only like Ingram right now. But even then, he's up against Cleveland's defensive front. So you're going to have that to worry about. Cleveland, they found a way to get ahead of the Chiefs and keep that for up until an unfortunate bad snap from the punt team on that 4th down, which really got them back in a position that they weren't prepared for. So 2-2 Falcons if we handle business out the first 4 games. Oh man, like just because that our last season's stretch of games, like in terms of like the win percentage of how everyone performed last season, that's not a true reflection of how they're going to be this season. Every roster is going to have some turnover, and the Giants are kind of sneaking up. Like they had some good games against really good opponents last year, and their roster got better. Washington as well. Like if a couple more plays, and who knows, maybe they're like going deeper into the playoffs than what they did last year. You know, like these are some good opponents that we're going to be facing in the upcoming weeks. Our easiest game that we're going to have for a little bit is the Jets, and even then, we got to do that in London. So, yep, I'm over here in Cali. That explains how late it is for anyone else over on the East Coast. I'm not going to say it out loud, but okay. I don't necessarily agree with that, though. He is above average. Okay. And if let's say like Tyrod Taylor or Teddy Bridgewater is your average, I would take Baker over them right now. You know, I've seen how he was able to throw himself back into some games. You know, like that whole primetime performance against Baltimore last year. Like that was a shootout, and the Ravens were a good defense. So Chiefs play with you; they're never out of it. Yeah, one costly mistake for against Kansas City, and that's all it takes. So, okay, moving on. I think the Browns take care of that game against the Texans. Then you have our division matchup. Okay, we got a couple of people here. Who would y'all want to win between the Saints and the Panthers? I personally want the Panthers because if they can sneak an upset against New Orleans for us, that would be great. I'm going to try to see if I can get some of your answers there. Who do you want me to say? You want me to say the Saints win? Do you want me to say the Panthers win? What are we thinking here? As a wait for those comments, I'm going to start jumping overhead into the Vikings and Cardinals. Yes and no. Okay, so you're from New Orleans. You want the Panthers to win. I just don't think of them as a threat in the future. But if they can sneak a couple of wins, just play spoiler early in the season rather than late, hey, that's a good momentum booster. That makes the Saints not look as dominant and as invincible as they did in week 1. So I hope they tie. Yeah, if there's a way where they can both lose, that'd be great. You know? Like I don't want the ties to count as like a half win, half loss. I want that to be like a both full loss. Should I trust Robbie Anderson in fantasy even though he only had 3 catches last week? So I mentioned this before with the Saints secondary. Outside of Devontae Adams, who he had 10 points in fantasy. Like, let's be real. Like, he didn't have the worst of games. It was kind of everyone else. Like, the next best player that had like touches then was like Alan Lazard, and even then, like, he didn't do anything well. Again, if you're skeptical about how Aaron Rodgers played against this secondary, you should be even more worried about Sam Darnold doing the same thing. So that's all I got to say about that for Robbie Anderson. He's only as good as the matchup that the quarterback has against the rest of the defense. I would really want that to be true down the stretch. But week one's telling me that I have to I have to say that they got props from us, or from me at least. You know, for what that's worth. That's probably worth a penny in actuality. But moving on to the Vikings at the Cardinals. So for the Cardinal side of things, I'm seeing a lot of people pick up Christian Kirk. And I can't expect the same outcome to happen. Just for the simple fact that they have a lot of receivers that I think they're going to try to distribute the ball out to more. Specifically Rondale Moore. I mean, Rondale Moore did have like a good he did have some targets in the red zone, which I liked. Like, he is a very shifty and a very versatile wide receiver. So, hey, if you give him more chances, I think he's going to do some great things with the football. Again, I really want that to be true. I really want Green Bay to be like, you know what? Yeah, we're not even going to try. Oh, that's great. Yeah, you're going to move us over to Jacksonville just so that you can just try to be petty against our fan base, try to see if they, oh, hey, if they go from Wisconsin over here to Jacksonville, it's going to cost more money for them. Oh, sure. Just out of pure pettiness, we're not going to give you guys a game for your Saints fans to gloat over either. So if they want to think of it that way, sure. You know, Aaron Rodgers, for as good of a game host as he is on Jeopardy, he's actually not that bad of a quarterback. But once they will kill the Lions by 15. If you won by 15, I wouldn't consider that a kill. So maybe have a bit more confidence with that Green Bay offense. Or have a little bit more confidence with that Green Bay defense up against Detroit. Where I think they can also bounce back too, because Jameis Winston only had like 15 completions. All right. Jared Goff's going to have a lot more just by proxy of how that offense is still run. It says, is Kyler Murray elite? Yes and no. I mean, when it comes to talking about the whole elite quarterback situation, there's so many different factors. And one of the factors I'm looking to is consistency. And I know that Kyler Murray did get hurt in the final stretch of their games last season, but the rest of the team didn't do that great either with him on the field. So they snuck a couple of wins last year against like Buffalo, for example, with that Hail Murray. But I just wanted to see a little bit more from him now. Maybe we're seeing that now. It's going to be too quick and too close for me to say that in week one. But I did really like what I saw from him. Like, yeah, that's for certain. I believe in Jared Goff. Or Jared Goff. I don't believe in Jared Goff. I do believe slightly in Jared Goff, but he's not going to be in the upper echelon of people. You know, like, I'm not going to really consider him to be in the top 10, you know, if that's what you're thinking. Because even the person that's in top 10 is still going to have a drop-off in terms of the rest of, like, the 6 to 8 people that are above them. I'm not saying that these quarterbacks that are going to be in, like, the 10 or, like, the 8 through 12 range is going to be bad. You know, it's just the first 7 guys that you think of are just going to be that good. So, hey, if you want to think that, then, I mean, like, he was like the #1 fantasy quarterback last year. So if that says something to you, then hey, put him in the elite category. But for me, I want to see a little bit longer of a body of work. Yeah, Rex kind of thinks about me too. Jared is a younger Ryan Tannehill. At least Tannehill was mobile, though. I mean, Tannehill came from the Dolphins as a wide receiver convert to quarterback. So you got to think about that in terms of his mobility. Jared Goff, he struggled a lot under Jeff Fisher, and I think anyone really would. You know, maybe Sam Bradford was the only other exception then, but you know, he was, for as decent as he was, he just couldn't stay on the field. So Jared Goff, at least he's tough. You know, like he keeps his body right. He keeps his he finds a way to stay on the field. That's one thing. Yeah, Kyler Murray, like, he really took a couple of pages from Russell Wilson's book in terms of his deep throwing ability. Did you guys see how Tyrod Taylor played? Amazing comeback game for him. I'm happy for him. Yeah, I am too, man. Tyrod Taylor, he needed a break. Like, he just needed something good to happen to him. And who would have thought that being on the Texans was the good thing for him? You know? Oh, Jared trash. Titans losing season. Julio will regret. Remember I said that. Well, it's on stream now, so you don't have to remember. Just make sure that you pin this or save this to your watch later. And gloat about this if this all comes true. Okay. But that's your opinion. If you want to stick with that, you know, I'm not forced in my position to completely agree with that. I didn't see a whole lot of answers for the Saints versus Panthers. You know, I think we were kind of joking about how they were going to tie, how we want them both to lose. But, you know, it's going to be really hard for me in this position to talk good about either team, just for the simple fact that I don't really like both of them. But we will bounce back too. Hopefully the rest of the Titans offense bounces back. All right, it wasn't just Julio. You think Gallman gets some touches this week? If he's not on the inactive list again, which if that's the case, you know, you can only control so much of the roster when they're available for you on the field. And I think this is more. This isn't just like oh, I'm hurt. This is also just a matter of like learning the playbook. Like Mike Davis and Cordell Patterson, they had months to prepare to become a running back behind this backfield. Then Gallman doesn't have that yet. So even if he does get some touches, I don't think they're going to be as productive as Mike Davis and Cordell Patterson. If that's the case, why are you having Wayne Gallman on the field right now? So as you got the Saints. Okay, good to know. It's over for Julio. Matty Ice made him. We'll see. I think that's also going to be another one of those things that you're going to have to keep in your back pocket as far as like the things that you said early on. Again, I didn't want to hate Julio. I really didn't. But if the rumors and all this other stuff and it has any kind of truth to it, and on top of the fact that he's almost behaving like a completely different player, you know, with these not rough in the pass, but like unnecessary roughness. That's what I'm trying to say. With the fights against like the fourth string, or not the fourth string, but the fourth round corner on the Cardinals. Are you kidding me? You're Julio Jones, and you're fighting with the like Byron Murphy. Calm down, dude. Not to hate from the point spread. The Panthers will win. Okay. He broke me in the honorable CEO, Mr. Arthur Blank. He broke the heart of the seat, honorable? Okay. I don't know what you were trying to say there, but yeah, it's just a matter of I also want the Saints to lose because I don't want them looking so good and having them gloat about it. All right. Our line got manhandled. Honestly, it would look like those boys needed to hit the weight room. We needed some strong piggies up front. Piggies? If you wanted to evoke a reaction, that was it. But yeah, the left tackle piggy. Now that you're saying it, I'm going to start using it. Hopefully it embarrasses you. Just playing. But yeah, Jake Matthews, for a piggy, he's a good left tackle. All right. And he likes to run the ball. He likes run blocking. That was made evident. He was one of the only two like strong suits of our offensive line. I just want Jalen Mayfield to be helped out by any means necessary, whether that's Lee Smith, whether that's, Matt Hennessy or Drew Dahlman taking in a couple of snaps instead. Whatever the case may be, just know that there are ways to really solve that problem for him right away and then just get his confidence back up. All right. Because that was one of the biggest problems that I saw from him. It wasn't just like the false start penalties. It wasn't just anything else. Like he didn't really have a holding penalty, which is nice, because that's a problem that sometimes you really can't teach out of a lineman. Didn't have any like illegal hands to the face or, like face mask penalties, which some offensive linemen, when they're young, they try to struggle with out of desperation. So a lot of this stuff is fixable. Let's just say that. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. Is that what you wanted to say? Saints trash, the garbage trash on its way. Again, I want to say that too, but we got so many more games for all of us to kind of clear our opinions and get all of our thoughts in check. Eagles were getting to us with only 4 guys. That is depressing. But like I said, a lot of this stuff is something that we can fix. And, hey, give credit to the Eagles' defensive line, man. They were monstrous, especially Javon Hargrave. I understand Quentin Thomas' fault for drafting and signing a smaller O-line. Well, Chris Lindstrom was nice. Jake Matthews was nice. Prove it was saying our whole practice squad needs to be O-line. Maybe corner on top of that too. Maybe some extra wide receivers. But yeah, I mean, if there's one position that you really want to beef up your depth, it's going to be the offensive line. Because I mean, we seen with Matt Gono all the things that happened with him, and then Josh Andrews breaking his hand, which he should be back in a month. So if you're on a bit of a streak of problems with Jalen Mayfield, I think it would be a good time to start seeing if you can heal up Josh Andrews' hand a little bit faster. Let's see. I can't handle the Saints. This should be Jameis' best year. Yeah, I mean, anytime that a quarterback is under Kevin James, Sean Payton, if you're wondering why I said that, check out on Netflix or just Google Sean Payton, Kevin James. Have yourself a good laugh there. Yeah, I mean, he was known even before he got to the Saints in Dallas. Like he was known as a good coach, like a quarterback whisperer. He was always making the offense easy for the quarterback to deal with. Like, I mean, you think of the games where like it was Teddy Bridgewater in control, and like there was no drop off in productivity on the offensive side for like the 6 games that Drew Brees wasn't there for the Saints. So the offense has always kept it good and consistent for there. What's your name, bro? I come late. There it is. Or there. I'm not used to this camera. There. Oh, geez. There it is over there. Jeez. All right, you got a close up of my finger now. That's about it. Okay.
Hey, Noah, your camera is frozen. I was trying to tell you that.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I don't even know what's going on. Like I obviously can't tell on my side because everything's working fine on my end, but
probably come in and come back out. Maybe that's probably what you need to do.
All right. Well, if that's the case, then maybe sometimes I can just kind of get rid of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I got to continue on with this slew of games. The next game that I want to talk about is going to be the Titans and the Seahawks. Some people were having some questions about like DK Metcalf and whatnot, about, especially about Julio. No, sir. It is too late for that. Anyways, so the Titans at the Seahawks. Again, Russell Wilson is going to cook. And if you need proof of that, check last week for not just the Titans defense, but also for the Seahawks offense. You know, hey, appreciate the support. I'm going to be here all Wednesdays. I mean, Chris Carson was getting a couple of good runs too. But right now, the offense still evolves around Russell Wilson being able to pass. Tampa going to cook. Time will tell, man. Time will tell. Seahawks look great. Yeah, they did. You know, and Colts were a good defense. Were. Okay, but still, it's too late for that. It's never a good time for that. Yeah, is this a good game for the Titans to kind of bounce back from? Who, after that showing, I don't completely trust that, right? The offense looks like it needs Arthur Smith back because not even Derrick Henry was getting his fair share of touches. All right, and I know that Arthur Smith really tried his best to run him to the ground. I think like the last season he had like 397 rushing attempts. Yeah, that was a lot to handle for any kind of running back. But he obviously got a good workload. It's just sad to see that once the Titans are kind of down, they really can't get themselves back into it. You know, and nothing was made more evident than that when their first like actual red zone attempt, they couldn't really like punch it in. You know, they tried it with Julio on a crossing route. He couldn't complete it. Then he tried it with AJ Brown, couldn't complete it. Then he tried it with like, I want to say Ferkser or whoever was 86. He got them closer. But even then, like I was there a couple times, they just couldn't really, they didn't really look the same on offense. You know, so as much as the people want to overreact and say that, oh, hey, we need to get rid of Arthur Smith already because he's a bad coach and makes all these kind of mistakes, that's not fair for him to say that because the Titans are really struggling without him too. So Tyler Lockett sliced him up 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he did that on 4 catches. And I think you really include that on top of DK Metcalf still being there. I want to see a little bit more from Dwayne Eskridge and their slot guy. So yeah, hopefully Derrick Henry does get going. I think this is a good challenge for the Titans offense to really get back in the swing of things. Hopefully Taylor Lewan learns his mistake from what happened to him against Chandler Jones. You know, he really tweeted that out and says like, hey man, you really got the best out of me. You forced me to become better. But yeah, I got my butt whooped. So Devin White via available will be used live 77. He's a 77. He's a rookie. Number 77. Who was that? Was that on your offensive line? Because if I remember correctly, I think your offensive line from left to right tackle goes Donovan Smith, Ali Marpet, Ryan Jensen, Alex Kappa, and Tristan Wirfs. I don't really know who you're referring to yet. Matt got that touch. Matt Ryan? He still does. I mean, sometimes he shows a little bit more touch than Zip. But really excited for the Chiefs versus the Ravens game. I want to be as excited as you are, but I don't think it's going to be as much of a competitive game. Like, the Ravens struggled against Vegas. And I think Kansas City is by far the better matchup. Can they clean up their woes? Can Lamar Jackson not cost them the game? I want to see some more from Mark Andrews, man. I had him on my fantasy team. I didn't really get to see anything from him. On the Ravens offensive side, you had really like Hollywood Brown. That was your only other threat. Devin Duvernay was getting some touches, but even then, he was just more of a kick returner. I think you're talking about McGarry. Oh, he's talking about R77. He's talking about Mayfield. Yeah. Okay. He was talking about. I thought he was talking about Tampa Bay's offensive line. I was like, man. I thought you were talking about your play because you were naming like Devin White and Vita Vea. I was like, okay, well. Wait until my Saints get a hold of the Falcons. It's going to be a putt whipping. Whipping? Like cream? Whew. I'm lost. You Falcons fan or no? The hat, the blanket for a curtain, the shirt, the fact that I'm on an Atlanta Falcons new YouTube channel. If nothing else screams that I'm a Falcons fan in California of all places with no other friends to really talk to. And I've been that way since before Matt Ryan got here. I think I'm in the clear for that. All right. I've been this way for 15 years. So Stafford was ripping it, even on those short routes. Yeah. So if you were referring earlier to Matt Stafford, then yeah, that makes more sense. Okay. Moving on to the next game. This is going to be another one of those afternoon matchups between the Dallas Cowboys and the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers are finding a way to win close games, and Dallas is still somehow finding ways to lose close games. Probably because of Gilbert, or probably Dan Quinn. But yeah, I think the Chargers found the ways to really get themselves out of that turmoil when it comes to late game antics. I mean, it still reared its ugly head last week against Washington with that whatever kind of like turnover, fumble, touchback kind of rule on the incomplete pass. Like, that was really crazy. Like, that was something that's not going to happen to them again, and that was really leaving some points on the board. So that score really could have looked like the Seahawks-Colts game, just kind of like 27-16 instead of 20. So yeah, like sometimes you just want to say go Chargers for the simple fact that you just like seeing the Cowboys lose, which there's a lot of people in that boat for you. Ever heard of Falcons fan in Cali? Yeah, well, I'm here. Falcons West is another writer on this channel. He's got his own YouTube channel. So we're few and far between, but we're here. What do you think the record at the end of the year would be? So I made my predictions for every team for every game. Like I said, I mentioned it on the article that you can find on AtlantaFalconsNation.com. But obviously that's going to change because I made all those predictions before week one started. So if you just keep up with the streams now, you'll just get my full opinion there. Yeah, DeMarcus Lawrence, he had some like fifth metatarsal injury on his foot. He's not going to be there until November. Collins got suspended a couple of games. I think Zach Martin's still off because of COVID. Yeah. In the first week, like Dallas is falling apart already, man. Now your best pass rusher is who? Like Randy Gregory? And even then he had some past issues. Maggie says, your question for 77 wasn't as clear since it was mixed with another team. Make sure your questions are understandable. Well, thanks for that, Maggie. Walker says, Dallas 34, Chargers 24. Really? You think amidst all of that Dallas is gonna? Well, I can see why, but we can't just sit here and pretend like LA hasn't fixed their defense. All right, because Brandon Staley's over there now, and he knows how to really work that defense with Derwin James. He was flying all over the field, and Nick Bosa's still there, so he's a threat on the offensive line. I do like that, and yeah, I think they just got enough people to make some plays. They're not a lot of household names. I mean, Chris Harris is still there, but yeah, not a whole lot of household names. But I think Brandon Staley has proven that he doesn't completely need everyone to be all pros for him to really be successful against a team like that. I can still see why you're thinking that Dallas would score a lot of points because Amari Cooper looked amazing. CeeDee Lamb, he had his moments, but his stat line could have really looked better if it wasn't for those drop passes. And then Michael Gallup, I think he's going to be off with an injury. Maybe. I don't remember if he's going to be out for that game, but he's at least like coming in like questionable or doubtful. To be honest, are we going to get blown out by the Bucs? Confidence comes and goes with every team. That's what I'll say. If you really want to like root for the team and continue to think that we're going to win, that's fine. If you are going to sulk about every single loss that we're going to have from now on until like another major roster overhaul happens, that's on you as well. First of all, why would I say Devin White going against my own lineman? Well, I mean, you were saying that Devin White, Vita Vea, and then number 77 was the rookie. That, I think, was the thing that wasn't really made clear. I mean, we can sit here and say that, but they had a lot of points that were left on the board against Tampa Bay. Like, they had plenty of opportunities to score even more points and kind of handily win that game. But they just weren't punching in every single opportunity that they had. Speaking of which, we're going to go on and continue with the Chiefs and Ravens game. I've already kind of said this before. I'm taking the Chiefs, and last time they faced each other, I don't think it was really even close. And I don't see why it can't be much of the same story now. You're a firm believer in the team, but you have to be honest and realistic about things. Hey, I was really critical about Arthur Smith, but I think that everything that was happening wrong in the Philly game is still like it still has a chance to be corrected. Like if I can think of some reasons to fix the team, don't you think Arthur Smith can think of the same things too? Like I'm just a dude, man. Like Arthur Smith is a coach that's been there for years and years on the offensive side of the ball, specializing in everything that we've pretty much been struggling in. Hey, if you want to say that the Ravens are going to upset, I would really want to see a reasoning as to why. Because Marcus Peters isn't going to be there really for the rest of the season. Like, you have Marvin Humphrey still. You have Westry, which, I mean, for a 6'4", 200-pound corner, coming out of nowhere on that secondary, that was kind of a good surprise to see from him. So maybe you line him up against Kelsey a little bit more. Like, the linebacking core is still kind of fine. The pass rush, especially like Odafe Owe, he was really getting there to Derek Carr last game. So, again, like just pump the brakes. Let's not lose all of our confidence because of one game. And it's easy. The Ravens didn't beat the Chiefs since Lamar/Mahomes came in the league. I think like the first showing that they had, Lamar was closer. Like they had a close game like once, like 2 years ago, I want to say. So it's not going to be complete blowouts. It's just not going to be like the games that we want to see as fans of football, so. And then, but I mean, I think last time was like a primetime game too, because this is a Sunday night matchup between them. And the last one is the Monday night game between the Lions and Packers, which we've already kind of had our thoughts said before this. I said Lamar throws for 350. who to who? Like Sammy Watkins? That guy's like a week ones only kind of receiver. I want to say like Hollywood Brown, but I didn't really see enough of him. Like if he couldn't separate that great against the Vegas secondary, which is more safety loaded than corner loaded, I don't really know, man. I mean, you got Mark Andrews still, but what else are you left with? I don't know if Lamar is going to really throw for that many yards. Honestly, that's not that bad of a prediction in terms of the score. That really isn't. Maybe kind of round that up to 38, just because I don't think that Kansas City is going to kick a whole lot of field goals. Like they know how to punch it in. Maybe they miss an extra point some here, which Harrison Butker is not that kind of kicker. So yeah, I pretty much talked about every game. Any other kind of last minute fantasy questions that you guys want to throw at me? I'll kind of leave that there. Up to you. In the meantime, yeah, if not, and I'm going to start to close this out because I am getting really thirsty again. And it's getting late. But I don't have a problem if it means like just a couple more minutes. Again, if you missed the stream, leave your questions in the comment section afterwards. Like I said, I'm going to be lurking around and just trying to pay attention to what people are saying. If you really trust what I have to say, which some of you do, some of you I got to win over still. Lions will upset the Packers just because Rodgers hates the Packers. Like, do you think that he's really going to throw the game away again? I don't know if I can rely on that again. I mean, divisional matchups are always going to be like, you never know what you're going to get. But with the storyline, with the narrative that Aaron Rodgers is trying to like break himself free from, and that's like, oh, he's throwing games on purpose. He's washed. He can't do it anymore. If he can't beat the Saints, then who could he possibly beat? It's your typical week one overreactions, and I would say the same thing whether or not we won. Like the first week of the season is still trying to get your feet wet in terms of who you are on the identity of the team. The Lions ain't beating the ran through Packers. I mean, just in terms of like who's more battle tested. Like Devontae Adams really said that he was like, hey, this was a wake up call that I think that the team needed. And I can certainly say that for the Falcons. But you look around the rest of the league, a lot of teams really didn't look that good either in their losses. So just because the scoreboard really looked obvious in our game, that doesn't mean that everyone was impressive too. Like I said, there was only a couple of teams that looked decent in their losses, and that was like Dallas and Minnesota and Cleveland. Other than that, everyone else played too sloppy of a performance for me to really like be confident in right away. So if there's no more fantasy questions that are coming through, then I think I'm going to start winding down. I was really like, Mad Mike said that he might make a surprise appearance like he did last week for me. Well, it is what it is. Packers is over. Tampa, flawless victory. Them Packers last year. Now they whole team want to break up. That sentence or whatever kind of phrase, whatever kind of comment this was, it just kind of hit me in waves. How's it going, Mr. Motivator? Yeah. But, I mean, he was up for last time. We went for like 2 hours and 40-something minutes. He held his own then. But, hey, if he's got to get his sleep, then I'm not going to bother him with that. But yeah, back to this. Packers is over. Tampa, we flawless victory. Them Packers last year. Now they whole team wants to break up. I don't think the whole team wants to break up. It was really just sore like Rodgers and Adams. And if you want to consider that the whole team, I can kind of agree with you, but I also kind of can't. Um, but yeah, like everyone looked really sloppy. Like they're gonna have a harder time with Aaron Jones keeping him on there. Well, I mean they paid him, but it's just a matter of making sure that he gets like the justified carries for that contract that he got. And then hey, AJ Dillon can get you some tough yards too. You know, he's really that type of runner who's like, oh hey, you want 1 yard? I can get you 3. You want 5 yards? I can get you 3. You know, but that's like Matt Ryan leaving Atlanta. That's like Matt Ryan leaving. Like, so you're saying it's not really going to happen? Are you asking someone else in the chat? Or are you asking me? Prove it. Were you a Bucks fan when Jameis was there, or are you bandwagon? Honestly, hey, how many Bucks fans were there when Chris Sims was their quarterback, or Josh Freeman, the prelude to Jameis Winston? You know, because I think someone like another sports writer said it best. Was like, can you really remember anything about the 2005 to 2010 Buccaneers? I feel like they just stopped playing football and no one really bothered to check. Bucks fans since Trent Dilfer days. Well, good for you, but I also got to say, I know that we're putting out some decent content for us, but you're from Tampa. Yeah, makes sense. They could be that way for that long a time. Yeah. I think we're just about to start winding down. I think Maggie is about to let me know that it's time to close out. Is that what you're going to say?
Well, no, I'm just coming in. You know, I know you're about to close out, so I was going to show my face and kind of let everybody know so we can reintroduce who you are, because a lot of people probably still trying to figure out what's going on right now. So wow. I'm just on, just so I won't get fired.
Just here so I don't get fined?
Yeah. That's what, fine. But yeah, so y'all met Noah. This is his second episode. He will be here every Wednesday night. You think we should consider earlier time, maybe, since it's just going to be you most likely? Or are you going to be back? If you're going to be at the same time every week, so everybody know to come find you.
Depends on my schedule, because sometimes I have the opportunity to take some half days from work and then kind of really prepare, watch some more film of every game, try to really like get my stats down. And, you know, I like the later luxury of like the 8 o'clock hour rather than the 7, because, you know, like at that time, you know, I want to eat my dinner too. You know, like yeah. I want to be able to have some life just a little bit after this to really kind of prepare if anything goes wrong. So.
Okay. All right. So everybody, if anybody didn't know, Noah does fantasy football questions. He'll help you, give you some tips. So for next week, if you're into that, bring your questions, prepare yourself. This is every Wednesday, as well as he just kind of talks about the entire league. Yes, he is a Falcons fan, as you see, with all the Falcons equipment in his background and his hat. But he also does talk about all NFL matchups for the week. So this is a show that you should tune in if you want to hear a little bit more outside the Atlanta Falcons talk as well. But you're gonna get some Atlanta Falcons talk, but if you ask him, but he will also address the league if you have any questions about that as well. But I don't want to stop that. Go ahead, Noah.
I mean, like when I started out as a young child, I wanted to learn the game of football first, and you know, so that's what helped me to become a football fan more than anything, you know. But hey, me being a football fan and me being a Falcons fan, they're like really neck and neck. All right, like if you take the Falcons fan away from me, you're almost asking me to give up football. And that's something that I just really can't see myself doing. I work way too hard to get to this kind of spot, and for me to really kind of give that up just so that other people are like not confident in the team, I'm not going to take that, and I'm all the way over here. So I just want to be able to expand the fan base a little bit more if you can on the West Coast side of things. I mean, we got some other streamers that are like visitors tuning in from all sorts of spots.
Oh yes.
So, like I said last time, I got my one of my first people that were like really tuning into my articles was someone from Ecuador and someone from the UK. So, yeah, you never know.
I mean,
you never know who this reaches out to.
Yeah, because we got a huge UK fan base. I know that definitely, and it's just so interesting to see the different areas outside of the United States. I'm always intrigued by that, definitely.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we're gonna call it a night here. Gonna let y'all have your opportunity to go to sleep early.
I know. Our East Coast people, y'all hung in there. I'm proud of y'all. But just let y'all know, if you are night owls, tune in to Atlanta Falcons Nations on Wednesday night. You never know who you might see. We're definitely working on having maybe some more West Coast people come on in. We're just trying to see what they're doing with their schedules. But if not, it's all Mr. Noah. Sometimes you probably see Matt Mike if he's not asleep. But I'm here in the background as always too. So, hey, Mr. Motivator.
So, yeah, I think that's about it for us right now. I'm still gonna be in the loop. Like I'm not impossible to reach.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just pay attention to some of the articles, which I saw a couple of people, they were really clicking on those articles about understanding week 1. So appreciate that. And I want to get more people to really check up on some of the stuff that I've been doing that before. And because I got some pretty good ideas in the works. And
where can they find your articles?
Well, I always, even if it's on my own website, I'm going to link it to the Atlanta Falcons Nation website too. So there's just going to be a shortened, condensed version, like the TDLR or whatever that, TLDR. That's what it is. It's late at night, and I'm our brain's starting to wind down. But yeah, I'm going to always have that link there to my own website. That way you can see it from there if you can't remember mine. So if you remember AFN, then you're going to remember that my stuff is going to pop up there too. So
absolutely. I'm going to put that link in the chat for your article. Once again, the latest one you dropped, and everybody just check out Noah on the Atlanta Falcons website. In case you didn't even know Atlanta Falcons Nation had a website. We're still in the works of getting it together though. We have other writers as well, but Noah is one of them. So if you want to hear some fantasy football, his opinions of the Falcons, definitely go ahead and get that breakdown because he breaks it all the way down.
Yeah, appreciate the support from everybody. There's quite a few of you sticking around this late, and I know that there's going to be people checking out the stream later on after this in the morning or whatever they kind of decide to tune in. So appreciate you. If you're up this late, listening 2 hours, 18 minutes into it now. So appreciate you guys rocking with us. And you're going to have some more streams like Thursday at 5, with the rest of the other guys. But until then, I might tune in to this Friday. I might not. My schedule will have to allow. Even if I am, I'm going to be off camera because I'm just coming home from work and I am not in a desirable spot to look at. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, I mean, maybe I can start having like one extra stream opportunity. It's not going to last as long, but maybe one extra stream opportunity on Saturdays. Do you guys want to consider that?
And then that's after college football. So yeah, because your time, it will be a little bit after, everything's kind of said and done. Well, it could be a West Coast game going on during that time, but by then everybody else in the East Coast is pretty much probably gamed out at this point.
Hey man, as soon as college football starts, that's when football is going to be on the minds of everyone for all of Saturday and Sunday. So
yeah, definitely. Okay, well, let us know. We'll announce that once he decides if he's going to be on Saturday evening nights as well. Yeah, get that fantasy in, people. Come back with those questions for next week. So now you know he is the guy you're going to ask about your fantasy lineups and everything. So if you are heavy in that, tune in here. This is the show for you, everybody. Thank you, Prove It.
So,
but I guess that's it. Go ahead and tune on out, people. Y'all have y'all rest of y'all night. We will see y'all next Wednesday. I guess we are out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and peace.